This is the brand new 2020 Ford Escape Hybrid, and this was the sales darling and the first crossover hybrid when it started back in 2004, but then 8 years ago, they just completely walked away from it. And the Toyota Rav4 came in and said, thank you very much. And they are now selling by the shipload. But it's back, it's here to try and repeg some of that ground, and there's actually a couple places where this does better than the Rav4. I want to show you that, and no, it's got nothing to do with the fact that it kind of looks like a luxury sports brand that we won't mention. Porsche. Excuse me. And before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit notifications so you can catch all our reviews as soon as they're posted. Yeah, it kind of looks like that Porsche Macan, doesn't it? Macan? Macan. Either way, those nice rounded corners, those curves, those LED headlights, the tail lights, and it also strikes a resemblance with the Lincoln Corsair, which is not totally surprising. They're made at the same facility in the States. But the 2020 Escape is brand new from the ground up. It is wider, it's longer, it's lower than its predecessor, and that definitely helps with the interior space, which we'll get to in a little bit. And you now have 4 engine choices with the Ford Escape. You start off with the 3-cylinder, 1.5-litre turbocharged engine. Then you go to the fun one, the 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo, putting out 250 horsepower. And then above this, you now have a plug-in hybrid electric Ford Escape, and that is going to go head-to-head with the Rav4 Prime that's been announced. That's going to be a battle, and then this one, the hybrid's going to be a bit of a battle as well. And of course, those ones at the top also going head-to-head with the Mitsubishi Outlander. Now, Ford in the last week just released the electric range for the plug-in, which is going to be 37 miles or around about 60 kilometers, which is just short of the Rav4 Prime, which will be 42 miles or around 67 kilometers, but pretty comparable, as is this. So both this and the Rav4 have the 2.5-litre 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine, and then that's connected to 2 electric motors, and we've got the battery as well. So this battery is a 1.4 kilowatt hour battery. The Rav4's got a 1.6, and this one, by comparison to the previous hybrid 8 years ago in the Escape, the battery is only a third of the size. It only weighs, I think it's just under 60 pounds, and it's the size of a briefcase. It sits outside under here somewhere, I think. And this is connected to the electronic CVT, as is the Rav4 hybrid. This is putting out about 200 horsepower combined. The Rav4 is 219. Now, the first place where I think this is better than the Rav4, the engine is quieter. The cabin is much more quieter. The transition from electric power to the engine is kind of similar, like it's very seamless, but I just feel like that sound of that drawn out eCVT on that Atkinson cycle is less intrusive on the cabin on the Escape versus the Rav4. And all-wheel drive is optional in Canada. Rarely do you get the choice, but it is optional here and in the States. It's an option of about $1,500. The difference in the Rav4 to this though, the Rav4 has an electric motor attached to the rear axle to drive the rear wheels when required. This one's the more traditional mechanical version. But as I mentioned, it is wider, it's longer than its predecessor, which really helps out one row back. Okay, here's another area where the Escape does really, really well. You now have best-in-class second-row legroom. You've got 38.9 inches of legroom for the rear passenger, which is outstanding. And this year, another new thing, these now slide back and forth, and they also recline, which is nice. The closest you're going to get to that legroom is the Honda CR-V, and this does better than the Rav4. And even though these cars, the specifications are so similar, they're exactly the same length, but this is an inch wider, an inch lower, but you've got so much more practical leg space back here. And another place where it does really well is closer to the CR-V is the access in and out of this back row, because the door arches nice and high and wide, and you're not impeded upon by that wheel arch. Good access to the footwell, so my kids can get in, no problems, get themselves in the footwell, get them onto their seat. That Rav4 was just a little bit tight in that department. That back door, the back door didn't open up to a good enough angle. This one's pretty decent. Not as good as the CR-V, which has about 85-degree door angle opening up, but this one does really, really well. So our rear-facing kid seat test, it passed that no problems. The front passenger has plenty of legroom, and that front dash is actually sort of pushed back and very upright, so you've got plenty of leg room there. So other areas it does great compared to that Rav4. More storage in the doors. That Rav4 has a room for one bottle, that's it. Here you've got a bottle and more. You've only got one mat pocket like the Rav4. This is pretty carved out, the back of the seats, which is very helpful. You've got the climate outlet, no USB charging back here, but you do have the 150 watt outlet there if you want to plug in a hairdryer or a whole chunky car charger if you want. You got the armrest, Headspace is good. And another place where this does really well is also one more row back in the trunk. Let's have a look. So 37.5 cubic feet of trunk space, which is around 1,061 litres, 2 litres more than the Rav4, but the Honda CR-V wins in this category. That's got 1,110 litres. I did look up, so the specifications that I was looking at, the hybrid, you actually get a little bit less. So you're getting about 34.4 cubic feet, or around 974. It dips below 1,000 litres. And I think, and that is because the specifications that I saw is that this tray sits a few inches higher, maybe to get that battery in there a little bit. So you're not losing out in terms of cabin space, but you are losing out a little bit more. You got your spare sitting under there. However, you're not missing out. It's all reasonably relative. You do have pretty good trunk space. The CR-V has a more squared off trunk to it. This one, you've got the angle of the window, so you lose out a little bit there, but still functions pretty good. All right, let's go to the front row. All right, first thing we have to remember when we're driving this is the price point of it. So this is a mainstream manufacturer. So there is a hell of a lot of hard plastics pretty much everywhere. But you know what the benefit of that is? It doesn't show up dirt or dust or fingerprints. There's a little bit of black gloss up here, but that's it. Even the steering wheel though, I guess it's leatherish wrapped. It just, you know, it's not high-end finishings in here at all. I don't mind that wood grain and some brushed metal on the handles, etc. But, you know, you can see some bigger gaps in some parts, whether it's all put together, like around the climate control here. Your climate control is all tactile buttons, so that's, you know, a bit old-fashioned, but it's totally fine. It does a good job. And then, like, listen to when I turn the wheel. Like the plastics are all rubbing on each other, which is so annoying. Another thing you'll notice straight up, which is awesome, is the 12.3 inch digital instrument cluster, which is really nice and crisp. But then over here, you've only got an 8-inch infotainment system, which feels a little bit small. And this is the Sync 3 on the 8-inch screen. And to be honest, it's really not one of my favorites. It's one of the things that I've kind of got a gripe on with this car. It's basic. Doesn't have a lot of features. It's got the basics. It's got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, but it's just a little bit glitchy. So when you've got Apple CarPlay on there, when you go to use your tuning knob here to scroll through your radio stations, it kind of glitches back to that picture of the cars, and then you can't actually see which station it finished up on. It just flicks back really fast. And also because Apple CarPlay is essentially an app, you can't actually look up your other apps while you're in Apple CarPlay. So if you want to see where your energy flow is while you're driving, you have to unplug your phone. So they kind of don't work together. And again, this kind of beats the Rav4 for the interior setup here. So you've got plenty of storage in the door trimmings. You've actually got it sort of tucks away. You can hide your chocolate from the kids down there. This is huge. Nice little phone tray down there. And you can man spread the hell out of this. I can man spread further than I ever really need to man spread. Fantastic legroom. I always felt that Rav4 was a little bit tight and your legs are elevated a little bit more in the Rav4, but this one, legs are a little bit lower, plenty of legroom, nice and comfortable. Another thing I don't particularly like is the drive shift here. I mean, I don't know, do I not like it because it's different? Probably. So let's take off here and have a listen to how it goes. It'll start off in electric mode. And then that engine comes in. And then if I floor it, I don't feel like that's as intrusive in terms of cabin noise from that engine as the Toyota Rav4. And one thing I've noticed about this, it just does everything to a decent level. The drive is nice and smooth, a little bumpy on some spots, but the steering is lightish, but not too light. It's just a really simple jump in, hit the button, point and shoot. There's nothing particularly outstanding to it, but in terms of your daily commuter, it really does tick a lot of boxes. And yet another thing that is virtually identical with that Rav4, so the fuel economy, this will get 41 miles per gallon is what Ford quotes, which is 1 mile per gallon better than the Rav4, wouldn't you know it? And then this is sort of around about mid-5s for highway driving and litres per 100 and mid-6s for around the city. I've actually done mostly, pretty much all city driving, and I've got bang on 6.5 litres per 100 kilometres, so pretty much spot on. Range on that Rav4 is a bit more, that's 915 kilometres. This one is around about from 850 to 880, but I mean, who's complaining if you're getting more than 800 kilometres in a tank of fuel? Whew, pretty good. Okay, off the line. Yeah, they don't sound great, but okay, so drive modes down here, you've actually got a decent selection of drive modes. which show up beautifully with the graphics on the dash. Normal, eco, you got sport for whatever reason, I don't know. Then you got slippery, deep snow and sand as well, back to normal. So you've got a decent range of drive modes there, and that's what Ford wanted to do. They wanted to still keep that sort of rugged ability that the Escape had. So if you want to do some light off-road work, I guess it can handle some of that. Towing capacity isn't huge. I think it's only about 1,500 pounds. So you're not going to be taking away the camper for the weekend, that's for sure. You've got a half decent range of driver assistance technology as well. So from standard, you've got the Ford Co-Pilot 360, which gives you emergency braking, it gives you blind spot warning, and it gives you lane keeping as well. But then you can option up to the next package, which also gives you evasive steering and adaptive cruise with stop and go and your lane centering as well. So the lane keep, you don't have like the lane centering just for driving about town. It only sort of couples with that adaptive cruise control. So you're not getting a top premium level of driver assistance technology, but it's all there if you do want to happen to option it up. And that's what also gets it the top safety pick from the IIHS, and it also gets a 5-star rating from the NHTSA. And what about the all-important price? So entry level on the 2020 Escape, $28,549 in Canada. US, it starts at $24,885. This one, the titanium hybrid, Canada $36,649, and in the States $33,550. And interestingly, in Canada, the plug-in starts at just $900 more than this, but it's not the titanium trim level, it's going to be a lower one, but you can get the plug-in for just $900 more. But the highest one you can get, titanium trim in the plug-in, is $43,650 in Canada and $38,835 in the States. So there it is, the all-new 2020 Ford Escape Hybrid. If I had to choose between this and the RAV4, I would actually choose this. I like the engine's a little bit quieter and the interior just has a bit more space and a bit more function to it. But it's up to you. Hopefully you found this review useful. If you have, give it a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel because we put out brand new reviews every single week. Till next time, from Family Wheels, I'm Kai.